let's get really honest and just admit it. Some of you are hearing these calls for caring for people, and your response is, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. I don't care. I know I'm supposed to care. I know you're showing me through the Bible that I'm supposed to care, but the truth is, I don't. Well, there's a story in the Bible about a man who built a life all based on himself, a very self-absorbed man, a man who decided that wealth was the most important thing. And so he set about to spend his entire life building up wealth for himself. And in those days, they didn't have, Washington Mutual or Wells Fargo, so he couldn't go stick his wealth in a bank. All he would do was just build bigger and bigger barns. And he spent his entire life on himself. This man gets to the end of his life, and he's accumulated all this wealth, and it's about time for him to retire. And so he has this conversation, and he says this to himself in Luke chapter 12. I'll say to myself, self, you've done well. You've got it made and can now retire. Take it easy and have the time of your life. But a few verses later, God calls this man a fool. He says, in fact, tonight you're going to die. He says, here is a man who has spent his entire life accumulating stuff for himself, and he's neglected something that was the best thing of all, which is a rich relationship with God. What a contrast to the Apostle Paul. I mean, Paul is probably my favorite Bible character because Paul shows me what it's like to live completely sold out, to live my life passionately for God. Paul was one of those guys that when one of the places that God took him was to Ephesus. And in the city of Ephesus, he founded a church and he stayed there for 3 years. And then God came and spoke to him and said, Paul, you're going to go to Jerusalem now. I'm telling you, you've got to go. But I want to warn you that up ahead of you is going to be imprisonment at the very least and possibly death. So here now God is telling him, Paul, I want you to go to Jerusalem and you may be imprisoned and you may die. And so you would expect Paul to say something like, you know what? That's it. I mean, I'm done. I have served you. I have sacrificed. I've been beaten. I've been stoned. I've been starved. I've been whipped. I've been bitten by a snake. And now you're going to tell me that I might get imprisoned and I might die? Sorry, no thanks. But he doesn't. In Acts 20:24, his response is this: life is worth nothing unless I use it for doing the work assigned me by the Lord Jesus. The work of telling others the good news about God's mighty kindness and love. This is my life verse as well. I have decided that I'm going to live a life at full throttle, pull out all the stops, risk it all. I'm not going to be like that rich ruler, that man who spent his entire life for himself. I want to be like Paul. I want to be like Paul, who goes through no matter what it is that God asks him to go through. But at the end of the day, his response is always, God, whatever you ask. My life is worth nothing to me unless I can spend it for you. So, are you ready to spend your life for Jesus? Are you ready to risk it all for his kingdom? That's the decision I've made.